Millionaire CEO humiliates her daughter at school, but a bricklayer teaches her to start over. Just before we start, drop a flag emoji that represents your country. The November rain hammered against the windshield of Victoria Sterling's black Mercedes as she pulled into the circular driveway of Riverside Preparatory Academy. At 42, she commanded a tech empire worth $300 million, but today she felt nothing but burning anger toward her 14-year-old daughter, Emma. "Get out," Victoria snapped, her manicured fingers gripping the steering wheel. "And don't expect me to pick you up after your little performance at the parent-teacher conference yesterday." Emma's face crumpled, her backpack clutching tightly to her chest. "Mum, please, I can explain about the math test." "Explain!" Victoria's voice rose, sharp enough to cut glass. "You failed again, Emma. Failed! Do you have any idea how embarrassing it is when Mrs. Patterson tells me my daughter might need to repeat 8th grade? I built Sterling Technologies from nothing, and you can't even pass basic algebra." Other students walking past the car turned to stare. Emma's cheeks burned crimson as her mother's voice carried across the parking lot. "You're an embarrassment to this family," Victoria continued, her words like daggers. "Your father would be ashamed. Thank God he's not alive to see what you've become. A lazy, worthless disappointment." Emma's tears started flowing freely now. She stumbled out of the car, her legs barely holding her up. The Mercedes roared away, leaving her standing alone in the rain. Across the street, 48-year-old Marcus Thompson paused in his work. He'd been laying bricks for the new library addition when the shouting caught his attention. The weathered construction worker watched the scene unfold, his heart breaking for the young girl now sobbing on the sidewalk. Marcus had seen plenty in his 25 years of construction work. Broken homes, struggling families, kids caught in the crossfire of adult failures. But something about this moment struck him differently. Maybe it was the way the girl's shoulders shook, or how she stood there completely alone, while other students hurried past, too uncomfortable to approach. He couldn't just walk away. Setting down his trowel, Marcus crossed the street. His work boots splashed through puddles as he approached the trembling teenager. "Hey there," he said softly, his voice gentle as summer rain. "You okay, sweetheart?" Emma looked up, startled. Through her tears, she saw a tall man in a hard hat and dirt-stained work clothes. Kind brown eyes looked back at her with genuine concern. "I'm fine," she whispered, the lie obvious in her broken voice. Marcus glanced toward the school, then back at Emma. "Want to talk about it? Sometimes it helps." Emma shook her head, but something in his patient expression made her hesitate. This stranger showed more kindness in 30 seconds than her mother had in months. "She hates me," Emma finally whispered. "My mom. She thinks I'm stupid." "I bet you're not stupid at all," Marcus said firmly. "Math giving you trouble?" Emma nodded miserably. "I can't understand algebra. Everyone else gets it, but my brain just doesn't work right." Marcus studied her for a moment. This kid wasn't lazy or dumb. She was drowning, and nobody was throwing her a lifeline. "Tell you what," he said, pulling a business card from his pocket. "I finish work here every day at 4:30. If you want, I could help you with that math. Used to tutor my nephew before he moved to California." Emma stared at the card. Thompson Construction, Marcus Thompson, foreman. "Why would you help me?" she asked, confusion replacing some of the pain in her voice. Marcus smiled, the expression transforming his weathered face. "Because everybody deserves someone in their corner, kid. And because I think you're stronger than you know." For the first time in months, Emma felt something other than despair. Maybe, just maybe, she wasn't as alone as she thought. 3 days later, Emma found herself standing nervously beside the construction site at 4:30 sharp. She'd thought about Marcus's offer constantly, torn between hope and fear. What if he'd forgotten? What if he changed his mind? But there he was, cleaning cement off his tools, his face lighting up when he saw her approaching. "Well, I'll be." Marcus grinned, setting down his equipment. "Wasn't sure you'd show." Emma clutched her algebra textbook against her chest. "I almost didn't. My mom. She doesn't know I'm here." Marcus nodded understandingly. "Sometimes we gotta do what's right for us, even when others don't see it that way. You bring that math homework." They sat on a stack of lumber, the construction site quiet now that the other workers had gone home. Marcus examined Emma's textbook, noting the pages marked with frustrated tears and eraser marks. "Okay," he said, his voice patient. "Let's start simple. What's the first thing that confuses you about this equation?" For the next hour, Marcus broke down algebra in ways Emma had never heard before. He used construction examples, calculating materials needed for walls, figuring angles for roofs, measuring space for foundations. "See? Math isn't just numbers on paper," Marcus explained, sketching a simple house diagram in the dirt with a stick. "It's everywhere. When I build a wall, I'm solving equations. When I measure lumber, I'm using algebra." Emma's eyes began to light up as concepts that had seemed impossible suddenly made sense. "So if X equals the number of bricks I need for this wall, and I know each brick is 8 inches long." "Exactly!" Marcus beamed. "You're getting it, kid." As they worked together, Emma found herself relaxing for the first time in months. Marcus didn't yell when she made mistakes. He didn't call her stupid or worthless. Instead, he patiently explained different approaches until something clicked. "My dad used to help me with homework," Emma said quietly as they packed up, "before he died when I was 10. After that, Mom got so busy with work and then angry all the time." Marcus felt his chest tighten. This girl was carrying so much pain, trying to navigate adolescence and grief while dealing with a mother who'd lost her way. "Your dad would be proud of how hard you're trying," Marcus said gently. "And I bet he'd want you to keep fighting, even when it's tough." Emma wiped her eyes with her sleeve. Will you help me again tomorrow?" "I'll be here every day at 4:30, Marcus promised, rain or shine." Walking home that evening, Emma felt something she hadn't experienced in years. Hope. For 45 minutes, someone had believed in her. Someone had seen potential instead of failure. Meanwhile, Marcus drove home to his small apartment, thinking about the bright girl who'd been convinced she was stupid. He'd seen real intelligence in her eyes today, buried under layers of hurt and discouragement. Tomorrow, he'd bring some of his construction calculators and show her how math applied to real-world problems. Some kids just needed someone to believe in them. Emma Sterling was going to succeed. He'd make sure of it. In her mansion across town, Victoria Sterling worked late into the night, completely unaware that her daughter had found exactly what she needed, someone who saw her worth. 2 weeks into their daily sessions, Emma's confidence was growing stronger. She'd started arriving at the construction site with not just homework, but genuine excitement about what Marcus might teach her next. "Look at this," she said breathlessly, rushing over with her quiz paper. "I got a B-. Mrs. Patterson said it was the best score I'd had all semester." Marcus set down his level and examined the paper, his face breaking into a proud grin. "Emma, this is fantastic. Look at how you solved this equation. That's exactly what we practiced with the foundation measurements." Emma beamed, bouncing slightly on her toes. It had been so long since someone celebrated her achievements instead of focusing on her failures. "Mrs. Patterson asked if I was getting tutoring," Emma continued. "I told her yes, but I didn't say who. Is that okay?" Marcus nodded, understanding the delicate situation. "That's smart, kid. We keep this between us for now." As they settled into their usual spot on the lumber pile, Marcus pulled out a thermos of hot chocolate, something he'd started bringing when the November weather turned colder. "Today, let's tackle those word problems that have been giving you trouble," he said, opening Emma's textbook. "Remember, it's just like figuring out how much material I need for a job." Emma nodded eagerly, but as they worked, Marcus noticed her glancing around nervously. "Something wrong?" he asked gently. Emma bit her lip. "My mom's been asking questions about why I'm getting home later. I told her I was staying for study hall, but I don't think she believes me." Marcus felt a knot form in his stomach. He'd been dreading this conversation, knowing it would come eventually. "What do you want to do?" "I want to keep coming here," Emma said quickly. "You explain things better than any teacher I've ever had. And you don't make me feel stupid when I don't understand something right away." The sincerity in her voice hit Marcus hard. This kid was starving for encouragement, for someone to invest in her potential. "Tell you what," Marcus said after a moment, "if your mum finds out and has questions, you give her my business card. I'll talk to her, explain that I'm just helping with math. Maybe she'll understand." Emma's expression grew doubtful. "You don't know my mum. She doesn't trust anyone, especially not." She trailed off, embarrassed, but Marcus understood. Victoria Sterling probably wouldn't trust a construction worker around her daughter, no matter how pure his intentions. "Especially not blue-collar guys like me," Marcus finished gently. "Emma, I've dealt with all kinds of people in my work. Rich, poor, nice, difficult. They're all just people. If your mum cares about you getting better grades, she'll come around." Emma worked through 3 more problems successfully before packing up her books. As she prepared to leave, she turned back to Marcus with unusual seriousness. "Marcus, why do you do this? Help me, I mean. You don't even know me." Marcus was quiet for a long moment, choosing his words carefully. "When I was about your age, I was struggling too. Not with math, with reading. This old librarian named Mrs. Chen noticed me trying to hide in the back of the library, ashamed that I couldn't read like the other kids. She spent hours with me, never made me feel dumb, just kept believing I could do it." Emma listened intently as Marcus continued. "Mrs. Chen changed my life. She showed me that one person caring can make all the difference. Now I get to pass that forward." As Emma walked home that evening, she carried more than just improved math skills. She carried the knowledge that kindness existed, that some adults kept their promises, and that maybe, just maybe, she wasn't the disappointment her mother believed her to be. Behind her, Marcus watched until she disappeared around the corner, already planning tomorrow's lesson and hoping their secret could last a little longer. The confrontation Marcus had been dreading came on a grey December afternoon. Emma was working through a particularly challenging equation when the sound of expensive heels clicking on concrete interrupted their session. "What the hell is this?" Both Emma and Marcus looked up to see Victoria Sterling standing 20 feet away, her face twisted with fury. She wore a tailored business suit that probably cost more than Marcus made in a month, and her eyes blazed with protective rage. "Mom!" Emma jumped up, her textbook falling to the ground. "How did you—" "I followed you," Victoria snapped, striding closer. "When you started lying about study hall, I knew something was wrong." Her gaze fixed on Marcus, who had risen and removed his hard hat respectfully. "And now I find my daughter alone with some random construction worker. Are you insane, Emma?" Marcus stepped forward calmly, keeping his voice steady despite the accusation in Victoria's tone. "Ma'am, I'm Marcus Thompson. I've been helping Emma with her algebra for a few weeks now." "Helping?" Victoria's laugh was sharp and disbelieving. "What could you possibly teach my daughter? You work construction." "Mom, please," Emma pleaded, tears starting to form. "Marcus has been amazing. Look." She grabbed her recent quiz papers from her backpack. "I've been getting B's and even an A- on my last test." Victoria snatched the papers, scanning them quickly. Marcus saw the flash of surprise cross her face before the anger returned. "I don't care what his motivations are," Victoria said coldly. "Emma, get in the car, now." "Mrs. Sterling," Marcus said firmly, "your daughter is a bright kid who just needed someone to explain math differently. She's been working hard." "Don't tell me about my daughter," Victoria cut him off. "You don't know anything about our situation." "Emma, I said get in the car." Emma looked desperately between her mother and Marcus. For weeks she'd felt valued, intelligent, capable. Now that bubble was bursting, and the familiar shame was creeping back in. "He's not a stranger, Mom," Emma said, finding courage she didn't know she possessed. "Marcus has been kinder to me in 3 weeks than you've been in 3 years." The words hung in the air like a slap. Victoria's face went white, then red. "How dare you speak to me that way?" she hissed. "After everything I've given you, everything I've built for this family, you've built it for yourself." Emma shot back, months of pain exploding out. All you care about is your company, your reputation, how my failures make you look bad. Marcus watched the confrontation unfold, recognizing the deep pain on both sides. Victoria Sterling wasn't just angry, she was scared, defensive, a mother who'd lost connection with her daughter and didn't know how to rebuild it. "Mrs. Sterling," Marcus interjected gently, "maybe we could all sit down and talk about this calmly." Victoria whirled on him. "There's nothing to discuss. You stay away from my daughter, or I'll call the police." "Mom, no!" Emma cried. "You can't do this. Marcus is the only person who believes in me." The raw anguish in Emma's voice seemed to hit Victoria like a physical blow. For just a moment, Marcus saw vulnerability flash across her face. A mother realizing she'd become the villain in her daughter's story. But the moment passed, and Victoria's walls slammed back up. "Get in the car, Emma. We're going home and you're grounded until further notice." Emma looked at Marcus one last time, her eyes filled with tears and apology. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything." As Victoria's Mercedes pulled away, Marcus stood alone in the gathering dusk, hoping desperately that he'd planted enough confidence in Emma to sustain her through whatever came next. He had no way of knowing that across town, Victoria Sterling was crying in her car for the first time in years, finally beginning to understand how completely she'd failed her daughter. Emma's grounding felt more like solitary confinement. Victoria had confiscated her phone, forbidden any after-school activities, and arranged for a driver to pick Emma up immediately after classes ended each day. But what hurt most wasn't the restrictions. It was watching her math grades slowly slip back toward failure without Marcus's patient guidance. 2 weeks before Christmas, Emma sat in her bedroom, staring at another failed algebra test. The equations that had started making sense with Marcus now looked like foreign languages again. She'd tried to apply his construction-based teaching methods, but without his encouraging voice and real-world examples. The concepts slipped away like sand through her fingers. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Victoria stood in the doorway, looking unusually uncertain. "May I come in?" she asked, a far cry from her usual commanding tone. Emma shrugged, not trusting herself to speak. Victoria entered slowly, noticing the failed test on the desk, the textbooks scattered in frustration, the general aura of defeat surrounding her daughter. "Your teacher called?" Victoria said quietly, sitting carefully on the edge of Emma's bed. "Mrs. Patterson says your grades are dropping again." What did you expect?" Emma's voice was flat, emotionless. "You took away the only person who could actually help me understand math." Victoria flinched. 2 weeks of watching her daughter withdraw had forced her to confront some uncomfortable truths about their relationship. "Emma," she began hesitantly, "I need to ask you something, and I want you to be completely honest. That man, Marcus, did he ever make you uncomfortable? Did he ever touch you or say anything inappropriate?" Emma's head snapped up, anger flashing in her eyes. "Are you serious? Marcus was nothing but respectful and kind. He treated me like I mattered, like I was worth investing time in. He never once made me feel uncomfortable or unsafe." The passion in Emma's defense of Marcus told Victoria everything she needed to know. Her daughter wasn't protecting an abuser. She was grieving the loss of a mentor. "Then why were you meeting him in secret?" Victoria asked, genuinely trying to understand. Emma's laugh was bitter. "Because I knew you'd react exactly like this. You don't trust anyone. You think everyone has an ulterior motive. It never occurred to you that someone might just want to help me succeed." Victoria sat in silence for several minutes, processing her daughter's words. Finally, she spoke again. "Tell me about him, about Marcus. What made him such a good teacher?" Emma looked surprised by the question, but something in her mother's tone suggested genuine curiosity rather than judgment. "He made math make sense," Emma said slowly. "Instead of just showing me formulas, he explained how construction workers use algebra every day. He brought calculators and showed me real problems he had to solve at work. And when I made mistakes, he didn't get frustrated. He just tried a different way to explain it." Victoria nodded, remembering her own struggles in school before she'd found her passion for technology. What else? He listened to me, Emma continued, her voice growing stronger. Really listened, not just waiting for his turn to talk or to tell me what I was doing wrong. And he told me about this librarian who helped him when he was struggling, so I knew he understood what it felt like. Victoria felt a strange tightness in her chest. When was the last time she'd really listened to Emma? When had she last approached her daughter's struggles with patience instead of frustration? Emma, Victoria said carefully, what if I could arrange for proper tutoring, professional help? Emma shook her head. I've had tutors before, Mum. They don't work for me. Marcus was different because he cared about more than just whether I got the right answer. He cared about whether I understood the process and felt confident about trying. Victoria stood up, moving to the window where she could see the construction site across the street. The library addition was nearly complete now. Your father would have been good at this, she said quietly. Teaching you, I mean. He had patience I never learned. Emma's expression softened slightly. Dad used to say that everyone's brain works differently, and good teachers figure out how to reach each student. Victoria turned back to her daughter, seeing not the disappointing student she'd been focused on, but the hurting child she'd been neglecting. Maybe, Victoria said slowly, it's time I learned what good teaching looks like. For the first time in weeks, Emma felt a tiny flicker of hope that things might actually change. Christmas Eve arrived with an unexpected knock at the Sterling mansion's front door. Victoria opened it to find Marcus Thompson standing on her doorstep, clean-shaven and wearing his best button-down shirt and khakis instead of his usual work clothes. Mr. Thompson, Victoria said, surprise evident in her voice. What are you doing here? Marcus held up a wrapped package and a manila folder. I wanted to give Emma something for Christmas, and I have a proposition for you, Mrs. Sterling. May I come in? Victoria hesitated for a moment, then stepped aside. Emma appeared at the top of the staircase, her face lighting up at the sight of Marcus. Marcus! She called, rushing down the stairs. Mom, you didn't tell me you invited him. I didn't, Victoria said dryly. He just arrived. Marcus smiled at Emma's enthusiasm. Merry Christmas, kid. I brought you something. He handed her the wrapped package. Go ahead, open it. Emma tore off the wrapping to reveal a scientific calculator with construction applications and a notebook filled with Marcus's handwritten math problems, each one relating to real-world construction scenarios. Oh my God, Marcus, this is amazing! Emma hugged the gifts to her chest. These problems look so interesting. There's also a proposition in that folder for your mom, Marcus said, gesturing toward the manila envelope he'd set on the hall table. Victoria picked up the folder with curiosity and wariness. Inside, she found a typed proposal titled Alternative Tutoring Approach for Emma Sterling. What is this? She asked, scanning the pages. Marcus cleared his throat. It's a formal tutoring proposal. I've outlined my background, my approach to teaching, and references from other kids I've helped. I'm suggesting supervised sessions at the public library, with you present if you'd like, focusing on practical math applications. Victoria read through the document, impressed despite herself by its thoroughness. Marcus had included letters of recommendation from parents whose children he'd tutored, his high school transcripts showing he'd been an honor student before going into construction, and even a background check he'd paid for himself. You did all this? Victoria asked, looking up at Marcus with new respect. Emma's a special kid, Mrs. Sterling. She deserves every chance to succeed. I know you don't trust me, I get that. But maybe you could trust this. He pointed to the proposal. Structured, supervised, professional. Emma looked between her mother and Marcus, hardly daring to breathe. This was more than she dared hope for. Victoria set down the folder and studied Marcus for a long moment. Why is this so important to you? Marcus met her gaze steadily. Because I've watched Emma go from feeling stupid to feeling confident, and then back to feeling stupid again when our sessions stopped. That kid has potential, Mrs. Sterling. Real potential. She just needs someone to help her unlock it. Mom, Emma said quietly. My grades are terrible again. Mrs. Patterson says I might have to go to summer school if I don't pass the final exam. Victoria looked at her daughter, really looked at her, and saw the mixture of hope and fear in Emma's eyes. This wasn't about Marcus Thompson anymore. This was about giving her daughter the tools she needed to succeed. The library sessions would be supervised, Victoria asked, turning back to Marcus. Completely. You can sit right there with us, or the librarians can monitor, whatever makes you comfortable. Victoria was quiet for several minutes, weighing her options. Finally she spoke. We'll try it, she said, and Emma's face broke into the biggest smile Victoria had seen in months. But there will be rules, clear boundaries, and the first sign of anything inappropriate, understood completely, Marcus said firmly. Thank you, Mrs. Sterling. You won't regret this. As Victoria watched Emma hug Marcus and chatter excitedly about starting their sessions again, she realized something important. Sometimes the best gifts came in the most unexpected packages. For the first time in years, the Sterling house felt like it might actually become a home again. The first supervised session at Riverside Public Library took place on a snowy January afternoon. Victoria sat at a nearby table, laptop open, but her attention focused entirely on watching Marcus and Emma work together. Okay, so if we're building a deck that's 12 feet by 16 feet and each board is 6 inches wide, how many boards do we need? Marcus asked, sketching the deck layout on paper. Emma worked through the problem methodically, using the techniques Marcus had taught her months earlier. 12 feet equals 144 inches, divided by 6 inches per board. That's 24 boards for the width. Then we need 16 rows, so 24 times 16 equals, she paused, calculating, 384 boards. Perfect, Marcus beamed. You see how much faster you got that compared to last month? Victoria watched this exchange with growing amazement. Emma was animated, confident, asking follow-up questions about deck construction that went far beyond the math requirement. This was a side of her daughter she hadn't seen in years. After an hour, Marcus began packing up his materials. Same time Thursday, he asked Emma. Absolutely, Emma replied, then looked hopefully at her mother. Mom, is that okay? Victoria nodded, still processing what she'd witnessed. As Marcus prepared to leave, she stood up. Mr. Thompson, could I speak with you privately for a moment? Marcus followed Victoria to a quiet corner of the library, while Emma gathered her books. I owe you an apology, Victoria said quietly. I made assumptions about your character and motivations that were completely unfair. Marcus shook his head. You were protecting your daughter. I understand that. No, it was more than that, Victoria insisted. I was being a snob. I assumed that because you work construction, you couldn't possibly have anything valuable to offer Emma academically. I was wrong. Marcus appreciated her honesty. What matters is that Emma's learning and feeling good about herself again. Victoria glanced back at Emma, who was organizing her homework with a focus and enthusiasm that had been missing for months. She's different with you, Victoria observed. More confident, more herself, I suppose. Emma's always been smart, Marcus replied. She just needed someone to help her see it. Victoria felt a pang of guilt. I should have been that someone. Marcus studied her face, seeing genuine remorse and a mother's pain. It's not too late, Mrs. Sterling. Emma needs you in her corner too. As they walked back to Emma, Victoria made a decision that would change everything. Emma, she said, sitting down next to her daughter, I want to learn Marcus's teaching methods. Would you mind if I joined your sessions sometimes? Emma's face lit up with surprise and joy. Really? You want to learn about construction math? Victoria smiled, feeling lighter than she had in years. I want to learn about whatever makes you this excited about learning. For the first time since her husband's death, Victoria Sterling was choosing to be present as a mother rather than just a provider. And Emma, seeing her mother's genuine interest, felt something she'd almost forgotten, hope that their relationship could heal. Marcus watched the moment unfold, knowing he'd just witnessed the beginning of something beautiful, a family learning to connect again. As they left the library together that evening, all three of them carried the same thought. Maybe this unlikely friendship would save more than just Emma's grades. 3 weeks later, Victoria found herself looking forward to the library sessions almost as much as Emma did. She'd started asking Marcus to explain the construction concepts behind each math problem, genuinely fascinated by how complex his work actually was. "So when you're calculating load-bearing requirements for a wall," Victoria said, taking notes on her laptop, "you're essentially solving differential equations." Marcus chuckled. "I don't call them that, but yeah, basically. Every beam, every joint, every support requires calculations. One mistake and the whole structure could fail." Emma watched her mother's growing respect for Marcus with deep satisfaction. Victoria was beginning to understand that intelligence came in many forms. "Mom," Emma said during a break, "did you know Marcus designed the emergency shelter system they used after the tornado in Millbrook last year?" Victoria looked surprised. "I didn't know that." Marcus shrugged modestly. "City needed temporary housing fast. I'd been thinking about modular construction techniques for years, just never had a chance to implement them." "That's incredible," Victoria said sincerely. "How many families did it house?" 43 families for 6 months while their homes were being rebuilt," Marcus replied. "Simple design, but effective." Victoria made a mental note to research Marcus's shelter design later. She was discovering that this man she'd initially dismissed had depths she'd never imagined. As they worked through Emma's homework that day, Victoria noticed something else. Emma was helping explain concepts to her mother that she'd already mastered. The shy, struggling girl was becoming a confident teacher herself. "Emma, show your mum how we calculated the materials for the community center project," Marcus suggested. Emma straightened up, clearly pleased to demonstrate her knowledge. "Okay, so first we measured the total square footage, then factored in waste allowance. That's usually 10% for safety. Then calculated based on the coverage per unit of each material." Victoria listened intently as Emma worked through a complex multi-step problem with ease and confidence. This was her daughter, brilliant, capable, articulate, who'd been hiding under layers of self-doubt and criticism. When Emma finished the explanation, Victoria applauded softly. "That was excellent, sweetheart. Really excellent." Emma blushed with pride, and Marcus felt his heart swell, watching the mother-daughter bond strengthen. As they prepared to leave that evening, Victoria approached Marcus with an unexpected request. "Marcus, I have a business proposition for you." Both Emma and Marcus looked surprised. "Sterling Technologies is expanding into sustainable building materials," Victoria continued. "We're looking for someone with real-world construction experience to consult on practical applications. Someone who understands both the technical requirements and the human element of building." Marcus stared at her. "Are you offering me a job?" "I'm offering you a consulting contract," Victoria clarified. "Good pay, flexible hours, and a chance to influence how buildings are designed for the next decade." Emma grabbed Marcus's arm excitedly. "Marcus, this is amazing." Marcus looked between Victoria and Emma, overwhelmed by the unexpected offer. "Mrs. Sterling, Why?" Victoria smiled, and for the first time it reached her eyes completely. "Because Emma taught me that wisdom doesn't always come in the package we expect, and because I think you could help us build better than we ever imagined." As they walked to their cars that snowy evening, all three of them carried the knowledge that their lives had just taken a turn none of them could have predicted. By March, Emma's transformation was remarkable. She'd brought her algebra grade up to a solid B, but more importantly, she'd found her voice. The timid girl, who'd once stood crying in the rain, now participated actively in class and even joined the school's math club. Victoria had also changed. The consulting arrangement with Marcus had evolved into something neither had expected, a genuine partnership that was revolutionizing Sterling Technologies' approach to sustainable construction. More importantly, she'd learned to listen to Emma with the same respect she'd give any intelligent colleague. "Mom, look at this," Emma said excitedly, bursting into Victoria's home office with a folder. Marcus and I designed a tiny house that could be built for under $20,000. Victoria looked up from her laptop, giving Emma her full attention, something that would have been impossible 6 months earlier. "Show me," Victoria said, genuinely interested. Emma spread out detailed drawings and calculations across Victoria's desk. "See, we used Marcus's modular design principles, but scaled them down for single occupancy. The math was incredible. We had to calculate load distribution, space optimization, energy efficiency ratios." Victoria studied the drawings, impressed by their thoroughness and innovation. "Emma, this is professional quality work. Marcus says I have a natural aptitude for spatial reasoning," Emma said proudly. "He thinks I should consider architectural engineering for college." Victoria felt a stab of regret. How had she missed recognizing her daughter's talents for so long? "What do you think about that idea?" Emma's eyes lit up. "I love it, Mom. I never thought I was smart enough for engineering, but Marcus showed me that I've been doing engineering math all along." That evening, Victoria called Marcus to thank him for yet another breakthrough with Emma. "She's talking about college now," Victoria said, her voice filled with gratitude. "Real plans, real dreams. I haven't heard her this excited about her future since before her father died," Marcus finished gently. Victoria was quiet for a moment. "Yes, Emma told me you two talk about him sometimes." "She misses him," Marcus said simply. "Sometimes kids need permission to grieve and remember." Victoria felt tears prick her eyes. "I stopped talking about David because it hurt too much. I didn't realize Emma needed to remember him too." "It's not too late," Marcus assured her. "Emma's stronger now. You both are." The next day, Victoria did something she hadn't done in 4 years. She brought out David's photo and put it back on the mantel. When Emma came home from school and saw it, she burst into tears, but they were healing tears this time. "I missed him being part of our house," Emma whispered, hugging her mother. "Me too, sweetheart," Victoria replied, holding her daughter close. "Me too." As spring arrived, the Sterling house filled with laughter and conversation for the first time since David's death. Emma's confidence continued to grow. Victoria learned to balance work with motherhood, and Marcus became not just a tutor, but a true family friend. But the biggest transformation was still to come. During their Thursday library session, Emma made an announcement that stunned both adults. "I want to enter the state mathematics competition," she declared. "Marcus, will you help me prepare?" Victoria and Marcus exchanged amazed glances. 6 months earlier, Emma had been failing basic algebra. Now she wanted to compete at the state level. "Emma," Marcus said carefully, "that's a big challenge. Are you sure you're ready?" Emma's response showed just how much she'd grown. "I'm ready to try. And if I don't succeed, at least I'll know I gave it everything I had." Victoria felt her heart swell with pride. This was the daughter she'd always hoped for. Not perfect, but brave, determined, and unafraid to reach for her dreams. The state mathematics competition was held in May at the university campus 3 hours away. Emma had spent 2 months preparing with Marcus, working through advanced problems that challenged even Victoria's engineering background. "You sure you're ready for this, kid?" Marcus asked as they walked toward the competition building. Emma took a deep breath, looking more mature than her 14 years. "I'm nervous, but I'm ready. Even if I don't win, I want to see how far I've come." Victoria squeezed her daughter's hand. "Your father would be so proud of you right now." Inside the auditorium, Emma found her assigned seat among 200 other students from across the state. Victoria and Marcus took seats in the parents section, both nervous for different reasons. The competition consisted of 3 rounds: basic algebra, advanced problem solving, and practical applications. Emma sailed through the first round, her confidence building with each correct answer. During the break between rounds, she found Victoria and Marcus in the hallway. "How do you feel?" Victoria asked. "Good," Emma replied honestly. "Really good. These problems make sense to me now." Marcus smiled. "Remember what we practiced about the practical applications round? Think like you're solving real construction problems." The second round proved more challenging, with complex equations that required multiple steps. Emma worked methodically, using the problem-solving techniques Marcus had taught her. She finished with minutes to spare. But it was the third round that truly showcased Emma's growth. The practical applications round presented real-world scenarios requiring mathematical solutions. One problem involved calculating materials and costs for a community garden project, exactly the type of challenge Emma had been working on with Marcus for months. As Emma worked through the problem, she found herself smiling. This wasn't just math anymore. It was problem-solving, creative thinking, and practical application all rolled into one. She understood not just how to get the answer, but why the answer mattered. When the competition ended, Emma felt a sense of accomplishment, regardless of the results. She'd challenged herself, pushed her limits, and discovered capabilities she'd never known she possessed. The award ceremony was held that evening. Emma, Victoria, and Marcus sat together, holding hands as the announcer began calling names. Third place in the freshman division. Not Emma's name. Second place in the freshman division. Still not Emma. Victoria felt her heart sink. Emma had worked so hard, improved so dramatically. She deserved recognition. And first place in the freshman division with a perfect score in practical applications. Emma held her breath. Emma Sterling, Riverside Preparatory Academy. The auditorium erupted in applause as Emma sat in stunned silence. Victoria burst into tears, and Marcus whooped with joy. "I won?" Emma whispered, still processing the announcement. "You won!" Victoria exclaimed, hugging her daughter tightly. As Emma walked to the stage to accept her trophy, she caught sight of Marcus in the audience. He was crying openly, applauding harder than anyone else. This man who'd found her broken and crying in the rain had just watched her accept a state mathematics championship. The transformation was complete, but the real victory wasn't the trophy. The real victory was a 14-year-old girl who finally knew her own worth. Later that night, driving home with her trophy on her lap, Emma made a decision that would honor everyone who'd helped her reach this moment. "Mom," she said quietly, "I want to start a tutoring program for kids who are struggling like I was." Victoria smiled, not surprised by her daughter's generous heart. "I think that's a wonderful idea, sweetheart. And I want Marcus to help me run it," Emma continued. "He changed my life. Maybe we can change some other kids' lives too." As they drove through the night toward home, Victoria reflected on the incredible journey that had brought them here. A chance encounter, an act of kindness, and a willingness to see beyond surface judgments had transformed not just Emma, but their entire family. Sometimes the most powerful changes came from the most unexpected sources. The Second Chances Math program launched that fall in the basement of Riverside Community Center. Emma, now a confident high school freshman, had spent the summer developing curriculum with Marcus, while Victoria provided funding and organizational support. Their first day brought 12 struggling students, ranging from 4th grade through high school. Emma felt nervous as she stood before the group, remembering her own feelings of mathematical inadequacy just 1 year earlier. "Hi, everyone," she began, her voice steady despite her nerves. "My name is Emma, and last year I was failing algebra. I thought I was stupid at math. I thought my brain just didn't work right." The students listened intently, recognizing their own struggles in Emma's words. "But I learned something important," Emma continued. "Math isn't about being naturally smart or naturally dumb. It's about finding the right way to understand it. And that's what we're going to do here." Marcus stepped forward, introducing himself to the new students. "We're going to approach math differently here. Instead of just memorizing formulas, we're going to see how math works in the real world." Victoria watched from the back of the room, marveling at her daughter's poise and passion. Emma had found her calling in helping others overcome the same struggles she'd faced. Over the following weeks, the program flourished. Emma worked primarily with the middle school students, while Marcus handled the high schoolers. Victoria often stopped by after work, sometimes helping with administrative tasks, sometimes just watching her daughter teach with the same patience and encouragement Marcus had shown her. "Emma," said 10-year-old Malik, after successfully solving a fraction problem, "you make this stuff actually make sense." Emma beamed, remembering how it felt when Marcus first made algebra click for her. "That's because every brain works differently, Malik. We just have to find the way that works for yours." One afternoon in November, exactly 1 year after Emma's first meeting with Marcus, Victoria arrived at the community center to find something that stopped her in her tracks. Emma was working with Sarah, a shy 9th grader who'd been struggling with geometry. But instead of just explaining the problem, Emma was listening intently to Sarah's explanation of where she was getting confused. "Okay," Emma said gently, "so you understand that we need to find the area, but the formula doesn't make sense to you. Let's try thinking about it like we're designing a garden." Victoria watched as Emma patiently guided Sarah through the problem, using the same real-world approach Marcus had used with her. The student's face gradually lit up with understanding. "Oh my gosh, I get it," Sarah exclaimed. "It's not just numbers, it's actually solving something useful." Emma smiled. "Exactly. Math is everywhere once you know how to look for it." As the session ended and students began packing up, Victoria approached Emma. "You're really good at this, sweetheart," Victoria said, pride evident in her voice. Emma glowed under her mother's praise. "Marcus taught me that everyone deserves someone who believes in them. Now I get to be that person for other kids." Marcus joined them, having overheard the conversation. "Emma's becoming a better teacher than I ever was," he said warmly. "That's not possible," Emma protested. "You saved my life, Marcus." Marcus shook his head gently. "No, kid, you saved your own life. I just helped you see what was already there." As they locked up the community center that evening, Victoria reflected on the incredible chain of events that had brought them to this moment. What started as a construction worker's simple act of kindness had grown into something that was changing multiple lives every week. "Marcus," Victoria said as they walked to their cars, "I need to tell you something I should have said a long time ago." Marcus paused, turning to listen. "Thank you," Victoria continued, her voice thick with emotion. "Not just for helping Emma with math, but for showing me how to be a better mother. For teaching me that love isn't about providing everything, it's about being present for everything." Marcus smiled, the expression transforming his weathered face. "Victoria, watching you and Emma rebuild your relationship has been one of the greatest privileges of my life." Emma, walking between them, linked her arms through theirs. "I love you both," she said simply, "my teacher and my mom." As they reached their cars, Victoria made one final decision that felt absolutely right. "Marcus, how would you feel about having dinner with us this Sunday? I think it's time we made this friendship official." Marcus's face lit up. "I'd be honored." Emma squeezed both their arms tighter. "It's funny," she mused. "A year ago, I thought my life was falling apart. Now it feels like everything finally makes sense." As they drove home that night, all three of them carried the same profound truth. Sometimes, the most beautiful relationships grow from the most unexpected soil. 1 year later, the Second Chances math program had expanded to 3 locations and helped over 150 students improve their grades and confidence. Emma, now a sophomore and valedictorian candidate, had been invited to speak at the National Education Conference about innovative tutoring approaches. Victoria stood backstage at the conference center, adjusting Emma's microphone as her daughter prepared for the biggest speech of her young life. "Nervous?" Victoria asked gently. Emma smiled, radiating confidence that would have been unimaginable 2 years earlier. "A little, but mostly excited. I get to tell Marcus's story to educators from across the country." In the audience, Marcus sat in the front row, wearing his best suit and beaming with pride. He'd initially protested being called a hero in Emma's speech, but Emma had insisted that his story needed to be told. "Good evening," Emma began, her voice clear and strong. 2 years ago, I was a failing student who believed I was stupid. Today, I'm here to tell you about the man who changed everything, not with fancy credentials or expensive programs, but with patience, creativity, and the radical belief that every child can succeed. Emma told their story honestly, her struggles, her mother's mistakes, Marcus's unconventional approach, and the transformation that followed. She spoke about how one person's willingness to see potential instead of problems had saved not just her grades, but her entire sense of self-worth. Marcus Thompson taught me that intelligence isn't fixed, Emma continued. It's not about being naturally smart or naturally dumb. It's about finding the right key to unlock what's already inside each student. In the audience, several educators were taking notes furiously. Others wiped away tears as Emma described the day she'd stood crying in the rain, convinced she was worthless. But this story isn't really about me, Emma said, approaching her conclusion. It's about the thousands of students sitting in classrooms right now, convinced they're not smart enough, not worthy enough, not capable enough. It's about the Marcus Thompsons of the world, the unexpected teachers who see diamonds where others see coal. Emma paused, making eye contact with Marcus in the front row. And it's about second chances. My mom got a second chance to be the mother she always wanted to be. Marcus got a second chance to pass on the kindness someone showed him years ago. I got a second chance to discover who I really was underneath all that fear and doubt. Victoria felt tears streaming down her face as Emma delivered her final words. Education isn't about perfect test scores or prestigious degrees. It's about human connection. It's about one person believing in another so deeply that they start to believe in themselves. It's about understanding that sometimes the most qualified teacher isn't the one with the most certificates on the wall. It's the one with the biggest heart. The auditorium erupted in a standing ovation that lasted several minutes. Emma found Marcus in the crowd and motioned for him to join her on stage. Reluctantly, the construction worker who'd become an educational pioneer walked up to join the student he'd helped transform. "Ladies and gentlemen," Emma announced, "Marcus Thompson, proof that heroes don't always come in the packages we expect." After the conference, the three of them sat in a quiet restaurant, processing the incredible response to Emma's speech. 17 school districts want to pilot your teaching methods, Victoria told Marcus, scrolling through emails on her phone. And there's interest from the Department of Education. Marcus shook his head in amazement. 2 years ago, I was just laying bricks. Now I'm supposed to revolutionize education. Emma laughed, the sound bright and confident. Marcus, you've been revolutionizing education all along. Now you're just going to do it on a bigger scale. Victoria looked at her daughter and the man who'd helped save their family, feeling overwhelmed with gratitude. "You know what the best part is," she said softly. "What's that, Mum?" Emma asked. "This is just the beginning," Victoria replied. "Think about all the kids we haven't reached yet, all the families we could help heal, all the potential we could unlock." Marcus raised his water glass in a toast. "To second chances," he said simply. "To unexpected heroes," Victoria added, touching her glass to his. "To believing in people," Emma finished, completing their toast. As they sat together that evening, three people who'd found each other in the most unlikely circumstances, they carried the knowledge that their story was far from over. They'd learned that kindness has a ripple effect, that judgment can blind us to miracles, and that sometimes the most profound changes begin with the simplest acts of faith in another human being. Emma Sterling, once a failing student, was now inspiring educators nationwide. Victoria Sterling, once a distant mother, had learned to lead with love instead of expectations. And Marcus Thompson, a construction worker with a generous heart, had discovered that the most important foundations he could build were in the lives of struggling children. Their story proved that transformation is always possible, that second chances can change everything, and that sometimes the most qualified person to change a life is simply the one willing to care enough to try. In a world too often divided by class, education, and assumptions, they'd built something beautiful, A bridge made of understanding, strengthened by patience, and held together by the unshakable belief that every person deserves someone who sees their worth, and that bridge would hold strong for generations to come.